first let's go through the machine that I will be using. Just need to get a power lead. That probably would have been a good start. Just get a power lead. Okay, right, so the machine I'm going to use, I'm just going to plug it in. Bear with me, guys. I probably should have set this up before I went live, but yeah. So I'll see, I haven't done this for a while. So we're going to spin the camera around. So I'm just going to plug this in. It's the Polyvance new mini welder. And this is the machine. So what you have on the left-hand side is a hot air welder, and it automatically starts and stops when you put it back on the cradle. And on the right-hand side, you have the little airless welder. And that's what you need for welding polyurethane plastic, because you can't use a hot air welder. So you've got your two settings here. So that's for the hot air. I'm going to put that on anyway because I might use it to help smooth it off. And then this is for the airless. You can adjust the airflow on the hot air welder using that dial there. But you can also adjust the temperature that you want to be welding at on the side, on the top here. So that's how that machine works. Now, we're going to weld this together. I will make the video and share it all with you later. And it's in 3 pieces, as you can see. This is not my repair, so please don't judge me for that. It's the company that sent me this. They tried to repair it, they couldn't. And someone told them about me, so that's now why I have it. So luckily that all goes in nicely. That will have to be welded and put back into place there. Now you can also see on the top here where they've tried to melt in a metal staple or weld it. Polyurethane, nothing can stick to this. It won't work. In fact, if you want, I can show you. So this is just a little hot stapler. We can do a little demo on this. Just change what we've got in there. Comes with loads of different staples. Let's use this one. This would be a good example of why welding with a hot stapler doesn't work on polyurethane plastics. So if this was any other plastic, this would melt in. But what will happen here is this will just, well, nothing will happen. You'll see. It just fizzles away and it just comes straight out. And that's because polyurethane can't be reheated to weld. So where they've tried to hold it together at the top and do a hot air weld or a hot weld, it's not worked. Yeah, absolutely rubbish. There you go. So nothing, doesn't hold at all. So what I will do is I will weld it using the airless welder. And it's a bit like, let's just say, using a glue gun really. I will grind it back with a really coarse, let me put this away and I'll show you. By the way, this is a really good hot stapler. It's rechargeable. You can adjust the temperature. It's got extensions on it if you need to add an extension. Little LED light on the bottom there. So you can see where you're welding. And it also comes with, which I can't find at the moment, it's in here, some smoothers. Oh, here we go. So it comes with a little smoother that goes on to the end there. So yeah, that's a really cool piece of kit. It's by a French company called Mix Plus. I've had this probably for about 5 or 6 years, so the quality is definitely there. Yep, highly recommend that. So let's put that back in. This is my sort of plastic welding cabinet. So what I'm going to do, when you're welding polyurethane, it's good to have a really coarse grit. I mean, I think this is like a 30 or something. It's really, you can see it's got some bite. This is actually a 3M belt disc. The belt sander actually comes from Kovacs. Nice little kit. But what this will do is when I'm grinding this out, it will create some really rough edges there. And that rough edge, those rough edges, is what the polyurethane So this is the welding rod that I'll use. So it melts it, it goes through gets fed through the airless welder, and then it comes out as a liquid on the other side. So that will melt it. And so that roughness that I've created by the belt sander is what that's going to help adhere to. Because like I said, this actual product itself can't be remelted. And this one is not a straight polyurethane. This has actually got a mix in it, so it's got some fibers in it. It's called mineral fibers. So the formulation on this one is PUR-MF20. So that means it's got 20% mineral fibers in there. Okay, so that covers that. Oh, and there's a section here that's totally missing, so I'm going to rebuild that up. Good way of doing that is with some foil tape, put it behind there and rebuild it up. But I'm going to go through all the steps that you see in one of my normal videos, except for this one is going to be slightly different because I'm actually going to put some sort of strengthening arms on it first. So as I go along, I will have to put my mask on when I do the welding and blowing off all the dust, but hopefully you'll get an idea. Now I can't see the screen, so I'm just going to talk and hopefully you can hear me, and then I will come back and look at the screen if you have any questions. Right, let's spin you around. So I'm going to weld this up. You can see I've already welded in the top section. What I'm going to do first is I've put a bit of foil tape here just to hold it in place and a little bit up on the top. But I'm actually going to just put some cross lines in there, or legs, and that's going to strengthen it just to tap it so I can then do the actual weld. So let's do that first. I'm using just a belt sander, as you might have seen in my live, with a really coarse grit on there. It helps a lot. So I'm just going to put my mask on just because of the dust. So, right, there we go. So you want to create this groove. If I take you off, you can hopefully see the groove, and you can see how rough that is. That's all going to help with the rod that I'm welding in adhere to everything. And these little cross, almost like a cross stitch really. I'm not going to do that on this side, the outer side, only the inside, just to provide a little extra strength. You can see I did a bit here because that was the first piece I wanted to weld in, and I needed to make sure it held in place correctly. Right, so let's weld this up. Just for you that joining that didn't see it earlier, the machine that I'm using is from Polyvant. It's their hot air plastic welding system. It produces hot air, but it's this tool here that we're going to use, which is an airless welder. Just dropped it. And we've got a large spool full of ribbon that I'm going to be welding with. So let's put you back on the tripod, and you can watch me actually weld this in first. So first I'm going to weld the crosses, and then I will do the whole section. Pull this aluminium off and do this edge. Now I'm not going to be able to talk as I'm doing this because I'm going to put my mask on just because of the fumes that come off. I'm just cleaning out the actual tube. And all you do is you feed this ribbon through. There you go. And it's heating up as it's coming through. In a moment, you'll see it come out the other end. There you go. And we're melting that in. Right, mask on. All right, thanks for sticking with me, guys. So now what I've done is welded that. It cools down really quickly. I'm going to peel this section off, put another one of those cross stitches on the end there just to strengthen it because we're on the edge, so we want to make sure that that's nice and strong. And then I can rebuild this section that's missing. And I'm not going to worry about sanding this all off and smoothing it because there's no need because it's underneath. But when I do it on this side, the crack, it will be all nice and smooth. So something else to know about this is, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, you can see when I did it, I only grooved out a small section. You want that to be as deep as you possibly can. You also want it to be, it doesn't need to be too wide, but it needs to be wide enough on either side of the crack, just so you can get a good layer of the welding rod in there and then it holds it. I see guys like sanding everything away, and you're just making the job so much more bigger for yourself. And also another thing you're doing is when you do that, let me just spin you around. When you do that, when you sand so much away, and then you come to sand where you've welded, you're thinning that plastic even more. So just don't do that. Just sand initially the area that you need to sand to create the weld. The rest of it, you'll be sanding off when you sand the weld back. Something else, finally, just sort of things popped into my mind. Perfection Plastics. Now, he's a really good guy. He's just popped on. He's a good guy. Check his stuff out. I mean, he does some amazing welds as well. Don't try and weld over the paint because you're not going to get a strong adhesion. So always make sure the area where your welding rod is going in or you're repairing is just plastic, that there's no other product there. So, because otherwise you will create a weakness in your weld. So right, let's peel this off and do this last section, and then I can turn it around and show you what we've got. So I'm going to just put you back on the tripod. I'm just going to flick through, all the posts, just see if there were any questions whilst I was doing it. If there are, I will answer them. Nope, a lot of people popped on. No questions. That either means I explained it well or they don't need to ask me anything. Right, let's put this back on the tripod and just do that final section. Here we go. So the aluminium tape that I put on here, not only does it hold the part in place, I mean, and this is a particularly strong one. No, it's not this one. I have two. I have this one, which is quite thin, and then I have a really strong one. This one actually comes from the States. I haven't been able to find it in the UK. It comes from Polyvance. This is sort of your standard. You can buy in any sort of sort of like car body shop or Halfords or something like that. But it's just not as tough as the thicker one. And the thicker one helps hold everything in place. But what it'll also do is when you put it on the back of the area welding, is it helps dissipate the heat. So nicely spread it out. Right, let's just quickly tidy this bit up. I'm just going to put my mask on for that. Okay, so I'm just going to weld in that last section. I'll actually take my mask off for this just so I can explain to you what I'm doing. So Joe from Perfection Plastics, I always either get that, it's either Plastic Perfection or Perfection Plastics. You know, hit him up, he's a really knowledgeable guy. And we're always sort of sharing tips, which is great. Now he may do this differently. This is the way I like to do it, and this is what I find works for me. His technique might be slightly different, but in principle, we're pretty much on the same page. So I'm just feeding that through. And Joe, what are you doing awake at this time? So you can see this is a little bit dark, so I probably should, let me just clean that through. We've got we've got some burnt stuff there, so we want it to be as clear as possible. So I'm just cleaning that out a bit, there we go. Come around this side. Now, when I make the videos, I speed this all up because otherwise the video would be ages, as you can probably tell. You don't want to push it through too quickly because then it's not hot enough. And if you go too slow, it gets too hot. So it's just finding that nice even balance. And like Joe said, you know, you create some bubbles. So I have got some bubbles here, but I'm not too bothered by that, because the strength is still going to be there. So I can build this up. You can go over it, just build it up, you know, nice deep groove, come back over it, fill it, refill it, keep filling it until you level it off, because you're going to sand that back anyway. And when you sand it back, you want to sand it back with something like 80 to work your way up. Sort of start with 60, then go up to 80, 120, 180, and then you can look at just putting a final skim on it with whatever plastic filler it is you're going to use. Now, Joe said to me yesterday, and I'm going to try and remember this, what did he call it? He called it skipping. That's it. So I call it smoothing, he calls it skipping, and it's basically where you just lightly go over the top there, and you're pretty much just smoothing it off, making it level, so you don't have a bubble or too much sanding to do. Joe, is that your own, did you make that word up? Because I've not heard that before. And when we do things and we're, when we work on our own, we've got no one else to talk to, we come up with our own sort of terminologies for stuff. And it works for us, so we use it. Right, there we go. So that will cool down now. And then what I'm going to do is just quickly scroll through. Here we go, Perfection Plastic. Sometimes I put a piece of tape down on the part as I place the purge, the filler, and it runs clear. Yeah, that's obviously another. So Joe, we've all got our ways of doing it. So yeah, brilliant little tip there. Thanks for sharing that. Just scrolling through, see. Okay, I'm going to just show you because it's probably more interesting looking at me than just those lines. How come you're grinding across, Wayne? Right, so the reason for that, Stuart Gare, is I explained it earlier in the video. So I think Joe calls it like creating legs or something like that. It's like a cross stitch. So what you're doing is you're actually strengthening it, especially with PUR, where it's almost like going on like a glue. If you've got something that's going to be really flexible, or you think there might be a slight weakness in it, in the plastic itself, if you do the cross stitch, it really helps just strengthen your actual weld, because you're not just relying on the line of the crack. Also, as well, for me, this is something I learned on a bumper that I did. I think it was last year. It was absolutely mullered. There was a video somewhere. I think it's on my YouTube page. And it was in pieces, a polyurethane bumper. And so by doing these little cross stitches, and in fact that one I actually just did some little spot drill bits all the way along it, and that helped it was like a tack. It helped to just hold the bumper in place as I came in and welded it. So I hope that answers your question. Can also use compressed air to help expedite the cooling process? Right, Joe, we're in the UK. It cools pretty damn quick here. John, JB, thanks for joining us. That's it. So I think I've answered all those questions. So I'm just going to untape this, and then you can see what we've got. Fingers. Fingers. So not, whatever I said, legs, not legs, fingers. Well, I knew it was some body part. There we go. Right. So here we are. This is the other side. Hold on a minute. So you can now see, I've already welded this bit on from that side. I haven't sanded any of it. So I can just pull off the tape, because we don't need it here anymore. And this tape the adhesive on here is really good. So I'm going to now use this, instead of throwing it away, I'll use it on the back for when I do the front weld as well. And then I've got the top section to do that. So right, there we go, guys. I hope that was an interesting live. I'm not going to save this one because there is a video that I'm doing on this, so you can hopefully watch it all later. There is a smaller section which is that one, and there is a video on that. It's a post back or 2 posts back, so check that out. Yeah. Let's get on and do this. Have a good one. Oh, I'll just check if there's any questions. Hold on. There's a couple of new people have popped on, so let me just make sure there are no more questions. I don't believe there are. Just before I go, just make sure that there are no more questions. I see Trevor's just joined us. Hi, Trevor. I haven't spoken to you for a while. I hope you're well. I haven't done one of these for a while, actually. It's time is not always on my side, so but it is nice to be able to share some of my knowledge with you all, which that's, for me, that's pretty much what my page is about. Actually, it's about sharing sort of what I do, how it works for me. I'm not going to say it's going to work for everyone, because it may not. But in my shop, and you know, sort of with my years of experience, it works well for me. So yeah, we can all relate to time in this industry. Yeah, it's tough. It's good to have not much time on your side. That means you're really busy, which is always a good sign, because if you're busy, you're hopefully earning some money, and instead of just kicking around. Right, that is it. I am just now babbling on. I'm going to get on with this because I have some other stuff to do today. Right, thank you so much. I really appreciate you all joining me, as always. Have a good one.